Good afternoon and happy Thursday. My name is Josiah Gilliam and I am the My Brother's Keeper Coordinator in Mayor Bill Peduto's Office of Equity. And we are very excited today to have the latest in our series called Our Neighbor's Keeper, where we've tried to create a platform to explore reality in various intersections of work happening at different levels within our city, within government, within the community. And today, we really want to explore this theme of wellness, which is a guiding theme for the My Brother's Keeper work this year. And acknowledging that it's Women's History Month and also Social Work Month, we thought we'd invite voices and people active in those spaces to have a conversation around those themes and to really encourage each of us on our own wellness journey. Today, I have a co-facilitator, someone that works in the mayor's office with me, Jordan Fields, and we have some great folks from the community here that we're very excited to have a chance to highlight and learn more about what it is that they do. So without further ado, let's go through a round of introductions and launch right in. And we'll begin with Sharice.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sharice Nance. I am a licensed clinical social worker. So thank you for the happy National Social Work Month shout out. I'm also a certified clinical trauma professional, an author, and compassion fatigue specialist. I'm the co-owner and founder of Hand in Hand Counseling Services with my partner, Tess Kinney. We are a group outpatient mental health private practice. We're located in Penn Hills on Duff Road. We have about 5 therapists now, I believe, and we help people who are struggling with the day-to-day concerns to the more severe pressing mental health conditions. And with this pandemic, that probably would fit everyone at this point. And I am also the founder of Vitamin C Healing. No, I am not selling vitamins, but that is metaphoric for healing of the whole person, mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and mentally. And we cater to those helping and healthcare professionals who are struggling with self-care, work-life balance and integration, compassion fatigue, and burnout. And we do that through our books, workbooks, online courses, and right now, virtual workshops.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Coach April.
Hi, good afternoon. We hit it right on the dot with the afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is April Jackson, and I am a transplant into Pittsburgh. Been here for about 8 or 9 years now. I am in the wellness space, specifically with nutrition and corporate wellness and holistic wellness. So in the same vein that Sharice spoke of, you bring your whole self to everything you do. And so I am a yoga teacher, have been for 20 plus years. And I also help people understand how to really practice mindfulness techniques that helps us all gain capacity to be better leaders, to be better companies, to be better teams, and to really help us gain a capacity to serve ourselves in a better way, and thereby being able to serve the community. I support people, I support organizations, I support leaders, I support individuals who are suffering through trauma, through microaggressions, and just really trying to ground and settle everyone. So when people are healed, we can do the work. So I'm an integral coach. I've been the general manager of Mecca Fitness and Nutrition for 5+ years. I manage a team of nutrition coaches, and I'm very excited to be on this platform with you all.
Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Jordan.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jordan M. Fields. I'm also a Pittsburgh transplant. I'm originally from New Jersey, but I attended the University of Pittsburgh as an undergraduate student, and now I serve in Mayor Peduto's Office of Equity as a policy coordinator. So I'm really excited to be here and kind of co-manage with Josiah and just learn today.
Yes, thank you all so very much. Very excited about this. Coach April, we talked about what we wanted to cover in today's conversation, and we've been getting to know each other better and talking about work and this present moment. And what really came up organically in our conversations around this broadcast was, why don't we walk the walk a little bit and ground even in this conversation in the middle of our day with a mindfulness practice. So I'm going to step out of the way. The floor is yours. Why don't you introduce what we're going to do and explain what we're up to.
Wonderful. Because we're venturing into an area where we're going to discuss topics that can really create energy in our bodies. Our bodies reflect everything we think and we feel. And when we are in tune with our bodies, we can better serve our bodies more. And we're going to do that today through a grounding practice. We hear breathing, take a deep breath, breathe deeply, use breathing as a tool of mindfulness. And I want to practice that right now. So I offer this to anyone who is ready, willing, and able. And if you would like to listen, you can. So I'm going to offer that you put your feet flat on the ground, and I am sitting in a pretty sturdy chair. So if you're sitting in a chair, put your feet flat on the ground. And you can lean back if you like, you can sit up. I offer a space that you can feel comfortable, but definitely alert in your body. So your bottom is in the seat. So if you can imagine your bottom flesh in the seat, imagine kind of like it being rooted, literally like roots of a tree that dig into the earth. If you can imagine that coming through your feet, those roots started with your tailbone and your glutes. And through the roots, you feel a rise through the crown of your head, and that might allow you just the ability to sit tall. I'm going to take my hands and put them on my lap, and you're welcome to do that as well. Just touching yourself, a little human contact on our own persons will help. You can keep your eyes open or closed or half mask. The invitation is to relax your eyebrows, to relax your eyelids, to relax your jaws. And you can support relaxing your jaws by letting your tongue just kind of fall back off of the roof of the mouth, away from the teeth. And let's take 4 breaths. And these 4 breaths are going to be in counts of 4. So if you can imagine a square, the 4 sides of a square, maybe visualize that in your mind. And I will count as I offer the breath. The first breath is an inhale. So let's inhale in for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold that breath in for 4 seconds. Allow yourself to just hold it in without stress, without conflict. And let's exhale out, literally blowing the breath out of the mouth or the nose for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. And then sit in that space. So the first part of your box is your inhale. Breathe in. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. This is your second part of your box, creating a boundary, holding that in. And now blow the air out for 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. And just rest in that. Go ahead and inhale in. And just feel the expanse of your lungs, of your ribs, of your belly, of your back. Feel your roots digging into the earth, grounding you. And then blow it all out, pulling the belly button in, feeling your body come back to itself. Hold that breath out. And let's take that breath in again. Inhale in. Hold the breath as you feel grounded and rooted through the soles of the feet, through the base of your spine. Blow the breath out. And allow yourself to feel relaxed even as you are grounded. And I'm going to offer that one last time. Inhaling in. Support yourself as you hold the breath in for the 4 seconds. And then whatever you need to let go of, go ahead and breathe it out and feel the relaxation wash over the body. And just sit in that space. So being rooted, being anchored, being settled can help give freedom. If you can imagine a tree that's rooted in the ground, the trunk is sturdy. And then you look up to the very top of the tree and the wind can blow the leaves and the branches. And there's a freedom to move. And there's just freedom in the sky. So give yourself some freedom by wiggling your toes and fingers. Maybe you want to Find movement in the shoulders, a softness in the eyelids. And let your breath just resume to your natural flow, your rhythm. And we're in this collective space of healing right now. But as you listen to your own heartbeat, recognize your individuality in this all. You have freedom now to join us back in this space. We'll open our eyes and settle into your space. Maybe take a cleansing breath if you like. So that offer was a practice of a mindfulness healing technique that we can all draw into ourselves.
Thank you so much, Coach April. What is the value in even a short practice like that for our day-to-day mindfulness and mental health journey?
Every day within our bodies, we come against stress. Stress could be something as simple as the toaster didn't work, the phone is going off. It can be as intense as someone said something that violated us. It can be intense with violations of our persons. And the body reacts. So the nervous system, you have your sympathetic nervous system, and you think of sympathy. You have your parasympathetic nervous system, it can activate you. And although the stressors sometimes don't outwardly create very obvious trauma, our bodies still internalize that. And so when you're under stress, your heartbeat increases, your digestive system slows down, your jaws tighten, your shoulders tighten, your glutes tighten. And then when your body's uptight like that, your brain is just activating in a space that's not really relaxed and healthy. Breathing is that mind-body connection. And when you take that inhale in, you literally create what we call a mind gap. You might be thinking 200 different things at one time. I have to answer the phone. I have to check this email. I have a presentation to do. I have a client to meet. The minute you take that inhale in, your brain doesn't think about that. It's an autonomic function that we can take over. And so doing that in little increments throughout the day can help relax you and help your nervous system just find a balanced state. It's very important that we give ourselves that, because the increase of cortisol in the body, the decrease of, we regulate hunger hormones through our nervous systems. So there's so many physical functions that are really, really susceptible to how we breathe and how we move and how we act. So something as simple as that can really let you know that situations, although they are real, how we react to them literally makes a big difference.
Thank you. So you mentioned how different ways that the body can react. You mentioned various systems within the body. And in your introduction, you mentioned this idea that we bring our whole selves into the work that we do. And that's part of the work that you do in community. Could you speak a little bit more about that and the work that you do as well?
Yes, and I work in a few capacities, as I shared. I also am the community learning director for Open Up Pittsburgh, and it's a nonprofit where we bring grounding and centering practices, mindfulness practices, the arts. When you bring the arts and mindfulness, you take care of our soul. And our souls are not so mystical. Our souls react to emotions. And we have mind, body, spirit, and we have our souls that connect with our spirits. And so in taking care of all those various aspects of who we are as an individual, we are able to bring ourselves into whatever we do. Society, and human nature, we've learned to compartmentalize things. And compartmentalization is sometimes an effect of pain. And if we cannot bring our whole selves into an area of school, an area of work, an area of community involvement, into our families, we are denying a part of ourselves. And that creates a stress. That creates a stress in the body and in the mind. And we aren't able to really, when we say walk in your truth and walk in your purpose, it sounds so beautiful, but there's truth to that. And mindfulness, grounding techniques really help us know who we are. And so that's what inclusion means. That's what diversity means. It means to bring ourselves into areas that we can share who we are, and then that will benefit the community, your workplace, your teams as a whole. And that's what I strive to do. I strive to help people, because we cannot be successful. Organizations, they can be successful by just having people come in and do the work and leave. But true success really comes in diversity. Our whole world has thrived because we've made connections, we've traveled, we've met other people, we've done other things. And so I really believe at the truth of everything is allowing people to be themselves.
I really appreciate that. So much of conversation in the city or in the nonprofit space, you hear these terms of diversity and inclusion. I love this reminder and this invitation to consider the different parts of ourselves and to include those parts of ourselves in how we approach our days, how we approach our work, and just that checking in to support and value ourselves in real time. Sharice, I wonder where your mind goes, having heard what Coach April has shared. And I wonder what you would share with us about the work that you do and how mental health, understanding around trauma and community, factors into that.
Well, now that I'm all zen from April's mindfulness practice, it's like she activated my relaxation system. So everything that April said, I'm nodding my head. I'm like, yes. And, as much as a lot of the work that I do is in trauma and mental health, but I'm always learning something new because we're still learning more and more about that. I just think human behavior and a human brain, it just continues to amaze me. And in the work that I do, I am a social worker by trade. So a lot of people, I think, get confused about this. I'm a social worker by trade. My credentials are in social work. I chose the track of mental health because social workers are everywhere. We practice in hospitals, we practice in schools, community mental health, we practice in government. We are literally everywhere. So I chose the mental health track just because I was always interested in how the mind worked and how systems worked and the healing of not only children, but families, and breaking the generational patterns that are hurting us, that are hurting our communities, especially the Black community. When thinking about trauma, I think it gets missed a lot, especially when we're thinking about children, when we're thinking about in a school setting. The first thing that comes to my mind, diagnoses such as, attention deficit disorder and oppositional defiant disorder, especially in young boys and young Black boys, when they're having a hard time maybe focusing, paying attention, or they're seeming like they're disruptive or being a distraction. That's the first diagnosis that, usually comes to mind. But if we're truly being trauma informed, we're encompassing a lot of what April said, taking a more holistic approach, making sure that we are asking the right questions, making sure that we're getting curious about what's going on in their lives and tuning in to their bodies. And, thinking about in my practice, right now I'm in a practice. I used to do a lot of work in the community as a social worker. If someone's coming into our practice, and even if it's the first day, we don't want to push papers at them if they are visibly tense and anxious. It's our duty, it's our responsibility to really tune into that, to be tuned in what they are struggling with. And that's, when we're talking about, being diverse and being trauma informed, that's what we mean. We may need to do some type of grounding, help them bring awareness to the room so that they can get present in a moment, help them with some deep breathing activities, getting what I like to call respectfully curious about why they are there and what it is that they are struggling with, but that doesn't come until after we're able to help them get present in the moment. We don't want to start off with, just straight content, asking them a lot of questions, because a lot of what, I'll echo what April said. If we're thinking about the brain, we're not going to be able to access that part of the brain because they're not there. They are not in the neocortex or the thinking part of the brain. They are strictly in emotional brain. They are in survival. So they're not hearing anything that you're saying. So you have to, something like mindfulness or deep breathing or any type of grounding will help to bring them in a presence, so that at some point you can get that to that conversation and do that work.
Thank you. Jordan, I wonder, hearing her talk about the experience of young people in various systems, I'm wondering what your reflections are and any questions you might have, building off of that.
I think this is such a phenomenal conversation already. And I just want to add how valuable both of your work is, especially in the Black community. I think we need a lot more people having these conversations. And just thinking about, we've mentioned kind of the whole self. And I think that concept really intersects with kind of, Josiah, the work that you and I do related to equity, because when we're talking about people's lived experiences and trauma-informed responses, whether that is, in the school system, as Sharice mentioned, I really have to think, is our work valuable if it doesn't take into account all that someone is, right? What is the value of our work if we aren't acknowledging every part of someone's identity? And I'm also thinking about how young people across the country are experiencing a lot of trauma right now because of the pandemic. They can't see their friends. A lot of them aren't in the classroom receiving the additional support that they need. And so I'm wondering how we can bring these practices into our daily routines, and how we can, even for those of us at home, how we can begin to incorporate this into our daily lives so that we don't become so overwhelmed by the trauma that we are living, every day.
I like that. It makes me think of various things. I appreciate Sharice bringing in, children and this, we're women. So thank you for representing and having us on the stage. And women are definitely, we're the cornerstone of the family. I have 3 Black boys, ages 14 to 20. And I also have suffered trauma, because historically we just have trauma. Mm-hmm. I shared in our pre-panel discussion, I just finished reading The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and, reading our history and then seeing how we engage and act in society, it's so understandable. Our mannerisms, our some of the culture that we have is steeped and based in trauma. Mm-hmm. And denying that, Jordan, is a big part of what has occurred in our systems forever. There is value, obviously, in learning techniques to ground ourselves, and value needs to be given to it. So paying people to do the work, inviting people in to do the work, and giving them their value to do it can help. Practical approaches to it, if I can share a personal example, is when my toddlers when they were little and they were just having a temper tantrum, I would say, take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. And a funny story is, I've shared this for a while, especially my oldest, and even all of them will be like, Mom, take a deep breath. When I get into my mama mode and I'm like, and they're like, take a deep breath. And I want to get mad at them, but they're right, because I'm activated and I'm agitated. And if we can really teach teachers how to do this, if we can support social workers, if we can support therapists, if we can teach doctors, if we can teach those who connect with community how to come at it in a compassionate way, and to look at someone and recognize their skin color, recognize their ethnicity, and to love it and accept it and embody it, I think that can really help teach individuals, like, it's okay to be myself and it's okay to take these practices. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't have time to breathe, I gotta work. Well, you can't work if you don't relax, if you don't rest. And I think people see that all the time. I was so tired, I just passed out, fell asleep for 3 hours. I woke up, had all this energy. Yes. So can you do that in smaller increments throughout the day?
Breeze, I'd like to ask you about the work that you do, because how I understand social work, and especially when I worked in the nonprofit space and community and had a chance to get to know so many social workers, the stakes are high, and you're dealing with the impacts of trauma and things along those lines. But these things aren't unknowable too. And when we were doing the prep conversation, you mentioned several terms. I wondered if you would just riff off of some of these. You said things to me around compassion fatigue, around this notion of burnout, secondary trauma, trauma stress disorder. I just wonder if you could just share a little bit about those, and then, and importantly, what then? How can we acknowledge and understand and study trauma, but then how do we heal? I'd wonder what your thoughts are there.
Well, I think building off of what April said, she said a lot about bringing awareness to teachers, social workers, doctors, nurses, people who are helping in healthcare professionals. I do a lot of work with organizations where we are talking about compassion fatigue and burnout. So what is the difference between compassion fatigue and burnout before I even enter into that conversation? So they're in the same family, but the major difference is compassion fatigue is reserved for those workers who are helping other people who have experienced trauma, suffering, and pain. So you're thinking your social workers, your mental health therapists, your nurses, your doctors, your police officers, your EMT workers, your case managers, your case workers. These are people who are seeing people who are at their worst. They're experiencing a lot of pain secondhand. So secondary trauma and compassion fatigue are the same thing. They're just mentioned interchangeably. So when as helping professionals, when we are experiencing this pain secondhand and it leads to compassion fatigue, that is a trauma. Now, compassion fatigue is not outlined as a mental health disorder or condition in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. That's what we use as mental health professionals to give someone a diagnosis. Usually it's important for just so we know what we're working with and we can help people relieve symptoms and for insurance companies, but that's probably another conversation. But compassion fatigue is not a mental health condition. So a helping professional can be struggling with compassion fatigue and have depression and have anxiety and have, bipolar disorder or, something else. However, burnout is classified as a condition by the World Health Organization. I've worked with clients, I've signed off on Family Medical Leave Act paperwork because people were burned out. Like April was saying, I think a lot of time people were in this, we're in this mode where people wear their hard work and they're pushing through things and they're being strong like it's a badge of honor. So we don't always listen to our bodies. We just go until we burn out. Anyone can experience burnout. Burnout is just exhaustion from overworking yourself. And so this could be the entrepreneur, the chief executive operator who's working 70, 80 hours, 6-7 days a week without a break and getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night. And that saying, no one ever died from lack of sleep could be no further from the truth. We need sleep to function. You make yourself susceptible to a lot of illnesses, and we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So we want to try to, build healthy immune systems the best way that we can. So that's the major difference between, compassion fatigue and burnout. What I will say is a lot of organizations that I've been working with have really, when we talk about value and investing in their staff, they brought me in and I've done presentations on compassion fatigue and raised awareness about it and talked about strategies that we can use to combat that, a lot of those strategies are actually grounded in mindfulness and grounding, because it's helping professionals. We're also caregivers. We need reminded that the helper needs help too. Oftentimes, I hear a lot of my colleagues asking, well, who helps the helper? We have to help ourselves. And honestly, it starts with that self-compassion, giving ourselves that same grace and kindness that we give to those that we pour so much into every day.
Yes.
Coach April, we were talking yesterday about this broadcast, about this conversation about work. We talked about this idea of how work during this era is oftentimes in our own homes. Before COVID, we might go somewhere, but now oftentimes those lines have been blurred, and we're dealing with a lot of this stuff, in real time. Can you just speak about those realities from your perspective, and how do we help, the helpers? I think that's a really profound concept, and I'm wondering how we should think about it and approach it.
Yeah. Sharice, that was just so powerful. Yeah, we compartmentalize, as I said, right? And so with our working community, we have those that go to work, and you're able to, and you're taught to leave your personal life at home and come to work, put on a new face, put on a new coat, and work. And in doing that, it's like we're robots, we're automated, we're supposed to be producers. And that's pain. That can really hurt. What if your child got sick and you're worried you had to leave them at home? What if somebody has COVID and they're on a ventilator, but you have to keep going to work and you can't be there to support them? So their minds are not fully there. And although they might do the work and they might perform in a good way, that's where that burnout begins to come in. That burnout it affects the body. So even though in our minds we can deny or focus on another area of the brain to do the work, we are definitely not working at full capacity. And when you get back to that space, you might have a breakdown. You might fall into an immobilized state, depression. You might try to escape by focusing on playing video games all day, or on your phone all day, or doing a behavior that is an escapist behavior. And so that mindset hasn't changed so much, even though we're working from home. And so now work has come into our house. A benefit of it is maybe you have more autonomy because you are in your own space. So you don't have to follow the rules of the building or of the company. You can wear your work from home clothes, a nice shirt and pajama bottoms. You can eat what you want to eat. I've seen clients where they have lost 20 pounds because they finally have time to cook. Mm-hmm. They finally have time to go for a walk. They couldn't do that when they were in the building. Mm-hmm. Or you have the opposite. They were in such a ritual and such a routine that they lost their identity. They lost who they were. They forgot that they liked to paint or journal or do things that sparked their love and their passion. And so I just read an article today about this invitation to work from home has also taxed people because now they're working harder. So people, managers, directors, they're like, oh, you're at home. I can talk to you because I'm on my computer. And so instead of working an 8-hour workday, they're now working 16 hours, or they're working 24/7. And so that's kind of a violation. They were saying in Yugoslavia, they had 8-8-8. You work 8 hours, you leisure for 8 hours, you sleep for 8 hours. And that was a system that they had in place culturally. One of the major financial companies in America, they have been upset since COVID has happened because some of those people are reporting they're working for 95 hours a week. And there's just when we think about the concentrated pain that we've had with COVID, with all the social injustices that have been publicized, I mean, they've been happening forever, but now we can see it when we think about people taking to the streets to really stake their claim and say, no, we can't have this anymore, a lot of that has exploded because of this like work from home, this isolation, this time where we haven't been able to express ourselves. And so again, learning these techniques, using resources to take care. I love Sharice said, it's support, it's self-support. Support of ourselves is important, and gaining support of community is important. And when you feel like you're supported and you're safe, then you can bring that into your workplace and you can demand it. You can ask for it outside of within yourself. You can ask for that support from others.
So I'm wondering what a new normal might look like as it relates to this work and community and our own personal, journeys. What I hear you all saying, and certainly it's been made clear, is that a lot of the old normal, so to speak, just wasn't working. It wasn't working for a lot of people. The realities of trauma, generational trauma, have been present before COVID for a lot of the work that each of you do. As you all think about your respective fields and professions, what would a new normal look like if you could call it, if you could speak it into existence? And then in particular, I'm also wondering, this blend of the personal too, what does this look like professionally? But then how would you counsel us as individuals to think about it?
I think the first word that, after also hearing April speak more on that, is the word that comes to my mind is integration. I know we all subscribe to the work-life balance, but when you think it's hard to have balance, sometimes it's impossible when it comes to work and life, because really, are you going to devote 50% of your time at home and then 50% of your time at work, and then you feel like you have one foot in here and one foot out the door here? You just feel like it's like a tug of war. You're being pushed and pulled in so many different directions. So I'm thinking more of integration. With this pandemic, while it's been horrible, personally, I suffered huge losses during this pandemic, but there's also been some silver linings and some gains. And one of the biggest gains and silver lining is, as a mental health therapist, a social worker, we've been able to stay connected to our clients via telehealth. The insurance companies have been super gracious, and they just keep extending the deadline where they are allowing these telehealth sessions to happen. Initially, a lot of our clients had a lot of anxiety, and they're like, no way, I'm getting on that screen. I don't think I want to do that. I'll wait till we go back into the office. So thinking about, what's that going to look like, strategies, how do you help the people that you're helping pivot and get used to this new way of life is, I think being honest and letting them know, we don't know what a timetable looks like. We don't know what the future holds. We're still in these unprecedented times. We're living in the middle of a pandemic. None of us have ever lived through anything like this before. So, just helping them to really embrace that and be okay with learning something new, making mistakes. And now more of them are embracing these telehealth sessions. And it's actually working out better because our compliance rate is a lot higher, because now people have more access. They can use their phones. They also allow us to have phone sessions that we can bill for if people aren't comfortable on screen. And transportation is not an issue. Childcare is an issue because it would be an issue, especially now with COVID. You got to limit the amount of people in your office. We have a nice size suite, but when you're thinking about, gatherings and capacity, there are only so many people who can be in that office. So being able to use this as an option, I think, is something that we are really hoping that we can continue to integrate in our practice, and not only in my sessions, but in my speaking engagements, just being able to reach more people with these services, because I think, and I'll use that word pivot. I know that's become like a household word. We've all been using it. Some people are probably tired of hearing it, but it really is the word of the year, because a lot of us have bought digital services. Now look at us, we're on this Zoom call, and we're reaching a lot of people, and we're talking about how we can be helpful, how we can help ourselves, how we can navigate through trauma. So I think that it's important that we continue to embrace this, and I'm sure at some point it's going to be safe for us to open up a little bit more and have larger gatherings. But this has been helpful. This has helped a lot of people. This has saved some lives.
Can I extend that? Sharice said work-life integration, and that's what I've been talking to as well, that balance, the balance is a scale that goes up and down, right? And so there will be times it's heavier on one side than the other. And when you think of integrating something, taking ownership of that word and understanding you can integrate and you can bring that, like your employer hired you because not only of your talents and your skill level, there was something in that interview that stood out to them above everyone else. And that came from your personality, that came from your person. You bring something to the table. And so bring yourself to the table. Hey, I have responsibilities and I need to take care of my child. I need to make this meeting. I want to sit on a board. I want to do community service. And something as simple when we talk about practices, writing out what your priorities are, writing out what your goals are, journaling, checking into yourself, giving yourself affirmations so you can build confidence to go into your director's office, your boss's office and say, hey, can I take an hour off every day to do whatever, A, B, C, D? They could say no, but your responsibility isn't to make them feel any type of way. Your responsibility is to yourself. So I think that we have had a new situation and a new way of working. And now we're all enlightened. I worked with a VP, and in the middle of the pandemic, he realized, like, my gosh, I was part of the system that wasn't allowing the employees to take care of themselves and their families. And he acknowledged it. He's like, wow, I realized I was a part of it. So I think as we transition, I'll try not to use the P word. I want to say it, but it's true. Like you move, you shift, we evolve. We're not meant to be stagnant. So in this new space, allow yourself to walk in a little bit more authority and bring something to the table, and don't think that you're going to be denied. Take ownership.
I think these are actually such great points because as we kind of spoke about yesterday during our pre-convening, I think people are finally realizing just how much time we spend engaging in labor, and how much we center our lives around our work. And so to hear, about, I think you said it was Yugoslavia that does the 888 system, and just people being more mindful of how much work they ask other people to engage in. I think that's a good sign moving forward, because what would be great to see moving out of this pandemic is a new relationship between people and the way we ask ourselves to work and how much we ask ourselves to do and how productive we are. I think, as somebody mentioned earlier, that people really do wear like their fatigue as a badge of honor. And I would love to see people kind of put that away and embrace rest and wellness and kind of prioritize themselves and just living instead of working, because we spend most of our life working just to live, and that's just to survive. As we mentioned yesterday, it's kind of like this bare minimum of survival that we're looking to reach right now. And so I'd love to see people move kind of towards thriving instead of just surviving. So just great points.
Yeah, what do you all think about this idea of pivoting? I'll say it, and you know what? Let me just lean in very quickly and honor what's been said. I learned the term pivot because of basketball, and that's why I like it, because you maintain a pivot foot. It's a way to prevent yourself from traveling. But I like it because, and I think about mindfulness here, in order to successfully pivot, you have to maintain a sense of grounding. You can't switch your pivot foot in basketball without it being a violation. So what you're doing is you're grounding, you're maintaining a sense of security, and you're exploring new options. Maybe you're looking for a pass, another way to score, another way to move the ball. What have you, but your age, it is a position of agency, even though you might in some cases be limited because you can't just dribble and take off. You have the ball. and so you're looking for an option, a way to move the game forward. So I enjoy the term pivot because of that. Thank you for indulging me there. But thinking about this idea of moving from surviving to thriving, what are your thoughts there? And I also would want to hear, we talk a lot about work and the realities for adults. What would you say to young people about this too? And how would you counsel them?
I can start, and then I'll high five. Sharice is under me on my screen. I'll high five her to piggyback on. So for young people, and I'll use an example of an unnamed person who was struggling in college and even in high school, just struggling to get good grades, something as simple as that. Highly intelligent, can ace, test scores, personable, but, had traumas that had happened, growing up in life. Parents separate, people die, girlfriend, you know what I mean? Just little things that as we grow, we realize in hindsight, oh, it wasn't such a big deal. But those are really big points in our life that shape us. But this person was striving to do what their parents wanted, striving to do what society felt they should do. So I'm going to, study engineering. I'm going to study, I'm going to take all these science classes. And although capable and smart enough to achieve in these classes, didn't spark interest in their soul. And so it took a while, it took a point to kind of fall to see, my invitation was sit down and just breathe. Go draw. You like to draw. Go, that's my dog, you guys hear it in the background. Go draw. Go do things that create happiness in you, because then that feeling. And if you know what it feels like to be at peace and to be happy and to be joyful, when you choose your work, when you choose your occupation, you'll remember that feeling, and that's what you'll gravitate to, something that sparks that in you. Or in your job, because we do have to pay the bills, right? So maybe you just need a job to pay the bills, but in that job, what part of that job sparks that for you? Is it engaging with people? Find something in your job that creates that for you. So you can, I like that, you have the agency to create that space for you. So I think for young people, that's really important, because in finding your joy and your happiness, you're giving yourself value. And once you know that, no one can take that away from you. So that's my suggestion.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just, building on that, I think I'm huge on values, whether it's with, young people, or even I work with a lot of adults now, just really being grounded in your values. And with young people, I think just giving them permission to not have to figure everything out today, not feeling like they have to carry that burden. I've been seeing a theme of a lot of over functioning, which is a form of anxiety. I need to do. How can I keep myself busy? It's really a form of avoiding. It's a form of flighting when we talk about fight, flight, freeze. So I've been seeing that in a lot of, some of the teens that I am still working with, where they are overperforming. They have these lengthy to-do lists, and they are just feeling like they need to do these things to for whatever reason, whether it's to please their parents, to make sure that they are getting ready for college, they are, just satisfying some requirement that they are finding themselves over functioning. So just really, like I think a lot of what April said, honoring your values, recognizing what they are, and also most importantly, knowing your capacity and honoring that too. I think in order to honor our capacity, we have to know what it is.
Yeah, know thyself, right?
Mhm.
To use these experiences and the traumas and these tools to explore you, and to understand how you can best show up. I think that's so well said. Let's talk about resources. I hear what you all are saying around the importance of our own personal journeys, the need for systems change, to acknowledge the realities of trauma and to study about it. Where can folks go to learn more? You know, if we wanted to inspire this mindful city, the mindful communities and mindful existence for our neighbors, what are some places where folks can go to learn and to invest in their own practice and explore and increase their understanding around these topics, whether it's neuroscience or physiology or breath, whatever the case may be?
Okay, I could go. Well, I think as far as we are in an information age. I don't think we are at a shortage of information, and with this pandemic has showed us there are a lot of great resources out there. There are a lot of organizations that are offering complimentary trainings. I know University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work is always offering trainings. They offer a lot of continuing education credits to helping professionals. I know the School of Education tied with the University of Pittsburgh is having a mental and emotional wellness that I'm a part of over the next coming months, where we're talking about different topics: trauma, mental health, anxiety, managing intense emotions. Those are the first. There are a lot of books that I absolutely love. If you're wanting to learn about trauma, there are a couple books that come to mind. I think The Body Keeps the Score by Vander Kolk. It's like it's almost like the blueprint of trauma. I think anyone who's interested in trauma would benefit from The Body Keeps the Score. And also Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She does a lot of work with adverse childhood experiences, and adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, or those adverse childhood traumas that a lot of people experience in their childhood that often get minimized and don't go recognized. And there are longitudinal studies that has showed that these unaddressed and unresolved traumas, they follow people well into adulthood, and they can cause chronic medical conditions, like your chronic back pain, cardiovascular issues, the COPD, depression, higher suicide rate just as a result of those ACEs. So, just looking up information on adverse childhood experiences, anything that Nadine Burke Harris has done in the book by Vander Kolk, I think are awesome. It's a great way to get started.
Yeah, and I felt Sharice would have really good resources on the local level because she is in the mental health space. And I think if somebody's dealing with mental health issues, it's important to find out how you can support yourself and get support for yourself from somebody who's professional.
Mm-hmm.
We have people who practice, and we are not supposed to know everything at all times. And so being able to lean into support is really, really important. And yeah, I mean, there's information all over the internet now, and there seems to be more access for everyone. And, even if you don't have a computer, go to the library and do research. Community recreation centers offer classes, and sometimes they're at a discounted rate. You could go online and really look at what you want to do. Do you want to breathe? Do you want to start yoga? Do you want to start a yoga for men's class? Do you want, might want something specific? Do you want to start playing the piano? There are different ways to explore practices that can help you find your value. So I would suggest doing that, doing your research and talking to people about it. You never know, like a coworker might be taking a class, online on painting. And there's so many universities and nonprofits that are really putting stuff out there. And now that it's getting warm, it's warming up outside. And so I would suggest too that everyone invite themselves to not be limited by resources. If you don't have money to do something luxurious, some people think resting is a luxury. It's not a luxury. It is a human condition. It's what we have to do. And so sit down, take a nap, go for a walk in the neighborhood, find something to do outside. That doesn't cost any money. Exercise can be a walk, get a jump rope, just move your body. And once you start with one thing and it feels good to you, you begin to do it over and over and over again. And you want to do something that you can sustain. So paying a few $100s to go take a class, maybe that's not sustainable for you, but maybe finding a local park and going for a walk. And then you might see a group of people doing Tai Chi in the class, in the park. I'm like, oh, I'm curious. So just really allow yourself space and time, give yourself time to do something.
Yes, I love that. Please go to the parks. If you're in Pittsburgh, go outside. There are amazing assets very close, I guarantee you, to where you are if you're in the city. There's going to be an event outdoors, a socially distanced, COVID protocols in place event in Riverview Park this Saturday. You can look at P3R as the organization that's helping coordinate it. Last time we were in Hazelwood, there was yoga. There was music and dancing, free food, a lot of resources for community members, and just a nice time outside. I'll be there on Saturday. If you want to come, you can see me there. And we'll be breathing and just spending time together. Coach April, I wondered if you would talk to us about a book that you recommended to me called My Grandmother's Hands. Why did you recommend this book, and how would you share with folks about it?
That book is so wonderful. I don't want to mess up his name, Resama. And what's his last name?
It looks like Menekem, but
Menekem. And you can follow him on Instagram and on his website. But My Grandmother's Hands is such it's a very beautifully written book, because he talks about how we are all under this white supremacist system. We all are. Our country is built on white supremacy, and the violence that we see has come from Europe. So it doesn't matter if you are white, Black, brown, Asian, it doesn't matter where you are in America. We are all under the system, and we've all internalized the system. And our bodies, there's somatic psychology. There's just the body tells us. And Sharice mentioned a few books about that. And when we look at the high percentage of disease, especially in Black and brown communities, we can't deny that it's stress. And so he lays out like practical information, but then at the end of every chapter, he gives you some mindfulness practices that you can engage in. And so Sharice talked about compassion fatigue, which is like secondhand trauma, right? So he will ask you maybe in a chapter to recollect a story that created trauma for you. And then in that, give you a grounding practice that you can do to help with that. So that book is a really wonderful way of taking theory, history, knowledge, and building that bridge to practical application of it. So I think that book, I've had so many people read that book of every size, shape, and color, gender, and everything in between, because I think it's just really a wonderful and beautiful way to show that mindfulness is important. And this is how we can benefit from that. This is how we can start the healing, because I don't know if you can heal when you're still in the midst of trauma. So that book is a good way to show you practices that you can use to take care of yourself in the midst of it. And if I could share a story from there, it was a cute story, but like he and his brother, spent time with his grandmother, and one day she whooped them because they were just like misbehaving. She spanked both of them pretty intensely. Afterwards, she set them down. And a lot of people in the Black culture have had this experience. She set them down. It's like, do you know why I did that? And they were going to hurt themselves or harm themselves. You can agree or disagree with again, he talks about that. She learned how to spank because that's cultural history for us. That's trauma that's relived over and over again. But she set them down and loved on them afterwards. And so he talks about that. And it's just a beautiful weaving of so many things. So I suggest that book. I definitely raise a hand to that book.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it. All right, my friends, let's take this conversation to a close. I could spend a lot more time exploring all of this with you all. Maybe we can do another conversation later on to do deeper dives. I'd really welcome that. I do want to make space if Jordan has any further questions. But I also wanted to highlight something in what we've been talking about recently that I think is really profound. And then I'm going to leave it for some personal encouragements from you all directly to those that might be watching in person with us or after the fact. And it's this idea that I first encountered in high school when I was taking like coding classes, and I didn't pursue that as a career path or anything. So it's not an area of expertise for me. I ended up being a liberal arts major, not computer science. But there was this protocol, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but like this if-then thing that you would set up in coding. And it was a way to tell the program, if you encounter this, then do this. And that's what I hear when you're saying these encouragements for our personal journeys and for healing in community. Like, so if trauma, then this, if oppression, then this, if generational poverty, then that, if stress, then that. And the recipe for how you go about it can vary based on each person's individual interests and makeup. But we want to, I think, encourage people that there is recourse, even in the midst of all of these traumas and all of this unfortunate history. At the end of the day, in the present moment, there is something that you can do that can improve something. Maybe it's your mental state, maybe it's your physiology, maybe it's your sense of calm. Maybe it is systems change. Maybe you have the levers and the policy in place to make massive change, and we hope that you do. But we don't want people to get stuck with the if, because I think sometimes with the conversation, we get to the acknowledgement of trauma, then the conversation ends. And now we've just all described why people are hurt or why people are struggling, and there's not a then sometimes. So that's why I appreciate talking with you all so much, because in each time, even though we talk about these tough concepts, you can then do this. You can then reground yourself. You can then go online and learn more about it and stuff like that. And I hope that more folks kind of integrate that into their rhetoric around these issues, so that folks aren't just left with an explanation of why they're in trouble. It'd be better to talk about ways that they can move forward and realistically come back to the present moment. So Jordan, do you have any other questions or comments before we wrap up?
I can't think of a single question. I feel like this was just so wonderful and informative and relaxing.
Yes.
This has been great. I feel great. So thank you both.
Edifying is the term that comes to my heart and soul. So thank you all so much. But Jordan, I am going to include you in this final round of questions. We started this conversation with this acknowledgement of Women's History Month. And I just wondered if each of you as Black women would end this conversation that we're having with an encouragement that comes to your heart. This can be to an individual, to a young person, to a government official, however you'd like to do it. But I'll start with Coach April, and I'll just go across my screen to Sharice and then Jordan. Just final encouragements that come to your heart.
I'm thinking of two things. Resilience. We all are here because we have been resilient, and we all have that in us. And so that spirit of resiliency can carry you a long way. And the Dalai Lama has a quote, and he said, if you don't believe that a small thing has power, think of a mosquito, what one mosquito can do. And so know that you have power, and even a small act of doing something for yourself creates change. So I take that into myself, and I speak that into myself so I can continue my journey. And I just want to offer that and share that with other people, especially women, and especially now for women. We've always had a fight and a struggle, and we're resilient, and we create beauty. So there's power in change.
Thank you. Sharice.
I guess I'm thinking about this theme of pain and suffering across the board, whether it's with women, helping professionals, Black people, people of color, and just anyone who's lived through this pandemic. We've been almost programmed, speaking of white supremacy, to wear this pain as a badge of honor. And I listen to a lot of personal and professional development speakers and there's this theme of wearing this pain again, like a badge of honor, and sometimes turning it into profit, and how can you make it work for you? And I think it's important that we take some time again to honor that, because we may not be responsible for past hurts, pain, and trauma. There's nothing that we can do to change that. It happened, it's in the past. However, we are responsible for our healing moving forward. And just thinking about how our past, I saw this quote somewhere and it just really resonates with me. Our past is a place to be learned from, not a home to be lived in.
That's powerful.
It's powerful. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jordan.
I don't even know how to follow that, but I think for me, thinking about rest and also accountability, I think throughout history, Black women, non-binary people, and when I say Black women, I'm including Black trans women, have taken on such a heavy amount of work. When we look at a lot of our social movements, a lot of our diversity, equity, inclusion work, when it comes to deconstructing systems of white supremacy, we have taken on a lot of that work. And so when I think about rest personally, I hope we can reach a point where we understand that it is not always our responsibility to save everyone else from situations that they have placed us in. And this is something that really became evident after the last presidential election. People were, Black women saved America, Black, blah, 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 all of this stuff about specific people in our community coming to the rescue, despite us probably being the most negatively affected by the system that we're trying to deconstruct. And so as we think about rest and wellness, I hope that we can center ourselves in a way that allows us to take a step away from that work sometimes, because it cannot always be on us. And I think the worst part of that is that we rarely get credit for doing that work anyway. And so for me, it is understand that it is not always your responsibility to save the day.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you
So
for
that's
that.
where I will leave it. Rest.
Well, what more can add? A lot, quite frankly. But for today, I think that is certainly a great note to end our conversation on. April, Sharice, Jordan, thank you so very much for taking the time to have this conversation with us. Thank you to each of you for the work that you do. And actually, real quick, where can folks find more information about you? I'm sorry. Where would you direct them to learn more about your organizations and the work that you do? Very quickly. April.
So I coach April PJ on social media. That would be on Instagram. CoachAprilPJ.com is the website that I have. And I do have, with Open Up Pittsburgh, with Mecca Fitness and Nutrition, those are resources that people can go to as well. But yeah, those are ways that you can connect with me.
Thank you, Sharice.
On all social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Sharice Nance, SHARISE, NANCE. Also under Vitamin C Healing, you can find me, vitaminchealing.com, ShariceNance.com. And also if you're interested in mental health counseling, HIHcounseling.com. Oh, and the SWAG Awards, the Social Worker Appreciation of Greatness Awards, where we're honoring local social workers for their work and for servicing the community. This is our inaugural. We're sold out and we're holding it virtually this year. The first time that we have this event, it actually has to be virtual. It got canceled last year, so we're doing it virtually this Sunday, March 28th. Social Worker Appreciation of Greatness. Please look out for that. We'll be beginning to promote for next year. So super excited to honor social workers.
That's awesome.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so thank you all again so much for your time. We also like to say thank you to Robin for spending her time with us and providing additional accessibility. Very much appreciate that. Keep out an eye out for more broadcasts. In fact, our next Our Neighbor's Keeper will be tomorrow. We're going to talk about trauma with folks that are working at the state, regional, and local levels. Some really interesting kind of puzzle pieces that have been put in place, research and tables convened with the governor at the state level, a bunch of local work, some of which we've explored on this series before, and then what the ongoing conversations are. So it's a related conversation, more systemic and focused, in the beginning of a series there as well. And then there will be a number of broadcasts, in the future through Our Neighbor's Keeper, the Office of Equity, et cetera, where we will continue to try to set a table to explore the intersections, to be open-eyed about the challenges that we're facing, but also talk about healing, talk about what new normals can look like, talk about what society, community, our city can look like in the coming days, and weeks. So very excited about that and grateful for the opportunity to engage with and learn from so many amazing folks. So with that, we'll say thank you very much. Please take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.